member. Probably been a NIPANC member for about 20 years. I was chairperson of Civil Service North of Ireland Cricket Club, so I am very familiar with NIPANC and where Rowan is sitting right now. I've been there many times, but it's a privilege to be doing this. So this is me. I'm just going to start with the way we're going to do this. I'm going to run you through some slides on NIPANC, give you an idea of what the charity's doing, things that we're doing with other charities, and that includes Pancreatic Cancer UK, and then that'll lead nicely into Amy's slides, and then we'll take questions at the end. So I'm just going to start off with a bit about my background and why I'm involved. If you could just imagine, as a 49-year-old, career going really well, training for the London Marathon in 2012, and suddenly not feeling that well. And to cut a long story short, I was taken into the Royal, and 3 days later told I had pancreatic cancer. A bit of a shock to the system, but just something that I had to deal with. I was told that there was good news and there was bad news. The bad news was I had pancreatic cancer. The good news was that it looked like it was operable. And as we'll touch later on in the sort of presentation, that is the first thing that you need, because without surgery for pancreatic cancer, and only about 20% of folks are eligible for surgery, there really is just a palliative solution, and that just means chemotherapy, or sometimes not even chemotherapy. Thankfully, I lived to tell the tale, got through the surgery, back to work, and then it came back about 3 years later. This time I wasn't given any chance of surgery. My life was dependent on the success of chemotherapy, and I'm a brilliant and avid advocate for chemotherapy, because that's why 14 years later I'm sitting presenting to you now, because of the power and the strength of chemotherapy. Chemotherapy is not pleasant, as you will all know and have heard of, but it can be and is a lifesaver at times. So Amy, you're very kindly doing my clicking at the moment, so we'll just move on to the next one, please. So a little bit about NIPANC. NIPANC was formed as a group probably about 10 years ago, and we joined at that stage with a couple of UK charities just to help us get literature and whatever, not Pancreatic Cancer UK, I would add. That sort of ran its course, and we decided in 2020 that we'd branch out and become our own charity, which is now registered with the Charities Commission. So we're now a fully fledged charity. Our board are made up of, we have 9 on the board, all volunteers. We don't have any staff. We don't pay any expenses. There's not even mileage claimed, it's purely voluntary. We have, our president is Tom Diamond, who was my surgeon, coincidentally, but an amazing man. And our board are made up of, there's another survivor like myself, but everyone else on the board has lost a loved one, whether that be a spouse, a partner, to pancreatic cancer. So we have a real wish to do something to really hit hard against this disease. Amy? Yeah. We have 3 aims. First one, to raise awareness of pancreatic cancer, and that's right across the populace, and that's exactly what we're doing here today. Across the population and across the medical profession. And if I had more time, I could go into a lot more on that. We do have, through the likes of the November campaign, we have something on every day. So I encourage you to go to www.nipanc.org or any of the socials and look at what we're doing. Our outreach last year hit 80 different countries across the world. So there's a relatively small charity in Northern Ireland is punching way above its weight. We of course fund research, and right now we've funded 4 PhD students in the last year at Queen's University, we funded a research audit through the Cancer Registry here in Northern Ireland to give government statistics, accurate statistics. And we've funded a number of research projects. And then the last one is support, and that is support for those folks who have been impacted by a pancreatic cancer diagnosis, whether that be the patient, a spouse, a partner, a parent, or a child connected with that. And some of the things that we do there, you can just imagine a pancreatic cancer diagnosis coming to a family, maybe with a low income. So we will step in, we will look at their situation, we will award them, award's the wrong word, but we'll give them a small amount of money, up to around £500, to go and do something to make a memory. Now, these are usually end of life folks, and that's just an amazing thing for them to do. And we also, if they want to do it, we'll also arrange professional photographs taken of the family. That'll be there as a lasting memory of the family when maybe one of the members has passed away. So, Aimee, next one, please. So just on the symptoms, and if I could ask you, if you take away one thing from my presentation today, this is what I want you to take away. This is a little A5 leaflet that we have, and I can make this available to Rowan for distribution to the wider NICSA membership. Basically, showing the symptoms that are common with pancreatic cancer. Now, a lot of the problem in diagnosing pancreatic cancer is that those symptoms are very vague. So fatigue, who of us don't have that? Upper abdominal pain, maybe we've been in the gym, trained too hard, indigestion, acid in your tummy. So it is incredibly difficult for the doctor to diagnose a pancreatic cancer patient. They may see one pancreatic cancer patient once every 3 to 5 years in their career, and yet they will see many folks every week with these symptoms. So we will come back to this. So, but I would ask you, if you want to screenshot that or take a photograph of that or whatever, I would love you to just be familiar with those things. That could save your life or the life of one of your family or friends, just knowing those at some stage. So what's the problem, Aimee? We'll go to the next slide, please. So the problem is, as I've just covered, if we move from the left, it's really difficult to diagnose. It is common symptoms to any other thing, and I was really fortunate, and I turned up with one of those symptoms, jaundice. My doctor didn't know what was wrong with me, but knew there was something seriously wrong and sent me straight to the Royal. So I was an easy diagnosis. But sometimes it becomes that there are vague symptoms. A patient is sent for test A, comes back negative, sent for test B, test negative. And every time that happens, there's 2 or 3 weeks goes by. So it's late diagnosis, and as we'll see later, that is not does not end in a good story usually. You can see it's the 7th most common cancer in Europe, and fourth leading cause of cancer-related death. And if you go to the right-hand side of that slide, by 2030, it's projected to be the 2nd most common for cancer mortality. It's not called a silent killer for nothing. Survival rates we'll touch on in a moment or two, and all along through the treatment, the patient, if they're fortunate, will have surgery and high toxic chemotherapy or radiotherapy, which is fairly tough on the body. And I'm sure many of you out there will have friends or family that all too well what I'm talking about. Aimee, just next slide then, please. So, this is NIPANC. We sponsored and paid for an audit of pancreatic cancer patients for 2019-2020 via the Cancer Registry. Now, you may think that that's out of date. That we did that 18 months ago. We're just about to fund another audit for 2021-2022. The data is usually lags behind the actual occurrences, but hopefully there's a system called Encompass is being put in at the minute, which should result in better and quicker patient records. So what you can see is in 2019, 2020, more than half and more than half of folks were diagnosed, usually in accident emergency with stage 4 cancer. Very few, less than 20% diagnosis stage 1. And, time matters when it comes to pancreatic cancer. The earlier the diagnosis, and that's common to all cancers, but the earlier the diagnosis for pancreatic cancer, it is vital that there's an early diagnosis to give the patient a chance of having surgery. Because as I said earlier, that's really the only route to survival. So Aimee, next slide, please. So what that means, when you look at the 200, if you look at the right-hand column, 220 N283, so N equals number of. So there were 283 folks in 2020 were diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in Northern Ireland. Only 12% were able to have a Whipple's. And the worrying statistic there is that's down from 2019, it was 21. Another 31% can have oncology, i.e. radiotherapy or chemotherapy. So if you add those two together, that's 43%. So that means that 50%, 57% of those folks diagnosed with pancreatic cancer are in palliative treatment, which is just terrible. Next slide, Aimee, please. So just to touch on survival rates, some scary facts. Unfortunately, 50% of folks who are diagnosed with pancreatic cancer have passed away within 3 months. 5-year diagnosis is around 5 to 7%, depending on what statistic you look at. And 10 years is less than 1%. So, like, I'm sitting in front of you as someone who is just about to go into my 14th year post-diagnosis. So I'm incredibly thankful that I am part of that statistic. Aimee? So NIPANC, so what are we doing? NIPANC is very much in the top bracket here. We just don't watch things happening and we don't say what happened, we make things happen. And we do that with collaboration. And Aimee, next slide, please. So right now, this is some of the bodies and charities that we are working with. Pancreatic Cancer UK, we'll touch on that very soon. And Aimee's presentation will go into that even deeper. We work with both universities. The Cancer Registry I've touched on. We jointly fund a counsellor post with Cancer Focus. I don't particularly want to be employing one person. If you employ one person, you may as well employ 10 folks. So we and Cancer Focus in this case employ the counsellor. We jointly fund that, and then we have access. If we have access for patients who are diagnosed with pancreatic cancer who need the likes of a counselling service or some of Cancer Focus services, and they will deal with them incredibly well. And then I've mentioned, and I'll go on later now just to talk about a collaboration with the Department of Health. So this is a really exciting collaboration. NIPANC, along with Pancreatic Cancer UK, are working right now with the Department of Health to develop a patient pathway. And what do I mean by patient pathway? I mean, from someone is diagnosed to getting them, from presenting through the diagnosis and then through the treatment. So if you just go through to the next slide. What we wanted to make sure was, and this is using the Pancreatic Cancer UK model, who have been down this road in the UK or in GB, actually not in the UK, but in GB for some time. But what we are going to be developing here with the Department of Health and with Pancreatic Cancer UK's help is a model that will be the first in the UK to be implemented. And we hope to have that implemented with the Department of Health within the next probably sort of six months, probably start of the new year. And what that has to be, it has to have faster diagnosis for the patient. It needs to be fair. It can't be a postcode lottery. has to be the same for anyone, no matter where you live in the province, and it has to be funded. And that's part of the cancer strategy. And I was honoured to be able to co-chair the cancer strategy for Northern Ireland that resulted in the 10-year strategy being launched probably 2 years ago. Aimee, next slide, please. So what does that mean? Busy slide. You can see in the top the current situation. Half the people die within 90 days is the situation, that the stat I've quoted earlier. And if you look at what we're calling for, and that's really what we're working at. So we want, and this is achievable. We want from time of presentation in the doctor's surgery or A&E or in the hospital, a 21-day timeline to diagnosis. Now that covers, as you can maybe see there, your tests, your CT scan, your actual diagnosis and the results coming back. The real challenge then is to get from diagnosis to surgery. Right now, that's running at about 40 days. There are examples that I know of examples where it's 10 days, but I know of other examples where it's 90 days. So it's making sure that that's streamlined, and obviously that needs the buy-in of oncologists, surgeons, every part of the medical team. And that is, as you can see, the yellow line. So treatment or diagnosis has happened, and then it's 21 days to the start of the first treatment, whether that be chemotherapy or radiotherapy. The red line basically tries to show the expert care that's involved, and that will be everything from pain relief, but then continued support, even if that is continued support through to end of life, which unfortunately can be the end result. So, can I ask you to remember in this one, Aimee? Next one, this slide. If you just take a couple of minutes to look at that, say I saw the message coming up that would be shared across the attendees and through the group. It gives contact details for NIPANC. I can be traced down, and folks can talk to me if needs be. But just please remember that. Next, Aimee, please. This is me closing off. It's now 19 minutes since I started, and I had 20 minutes, so that's perfect. So just to thank you. Thank you. Remember about what we've talked about on the symptoms, and also just in what is Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month, just to go onto our website, onto our socials, and just follow and like and whatever, share what we're doing, because we're doing a series at the moment with the 4 PhD students that we're sponsoring through Queen's, all incredibly young folks who are going to be doing marvelous things and impacting really positively on pancreatic cancer patients. So look, I just thank you for listening, and I can take questions at the end after Aimee's presentation. Thank you. Aimee, over to you.
Thank you, Ivan. That was a really great foundation, I think, in setting what the current picture looks like for pancreatic cancer patients. And as you saw, there's such an injustice with pancreatic cancer. I think, the statistics talk for themselves. It's such a traumatic diagnosis to receive, which is exactly why Ivan and everyone at NIPANC and everyone at Pancreatic Cancer UK and this collaboration we have together is so vital. And I totally agree, Ivan. If you're going to take anything away from what we say today, make it be that slide with the signs and symptoms, because early diagnosis is absolutely everything with this type of cancer, with all cancers, but I think with pancreatic cancer, the early diagnosis is the biggest thing we can shout about today, especially in this awareness month. So let me introduce myself. I'm Aimee. I am in the services team at Pancreatic Cancer UK. So at Pancreatic Cancer UK, we have part of us that looks at research. We know more and more research needs to be done. This cancer has been left behind, so research is a huge part of our work. We have campaigns. We need to campaign across our government in order to make sure pancreatic cancer is high on their radar. Again, it has been left behind, and we have to shout loud in order to get it prioritised and to seek that justice for people who are impacted by it. And then we have our support services, which is where my team come in. We've got our nurses on the support line. We have an array of information. We have digital support services, and I'm going to talk you through each of them today. The point is, you know, that statistic about half of people who are diagnosed will die within 3 months of that diagnosis. That tells you how difficult a diagnosis this is to receive. And we are so passionate about making sure people know they do not have to face that alone. But it's all about us shouting about our services, telling people about our support, making, you know, events like this, making it so clear what support is available so that people go and tell others about it, so that as soon as anyone receives that diagnosis, they know NIPANC are here, Pancreatic Cancer UK are here, because we can give such a lot of help and really help to hold someone's hand through this so that they're not alone with what is such a difficult situation. We've just launched our rebrand, which I just wanted to mention briefly because it's all about more than hope. So I talk about the injustice of pancreatic cancer, the fact that it has been left behind. And we just feel as though, you know, people have only got hope to cling on to when they get this diagnosis, but they deserve more than hope. So that is why we have put so much funding into research, and we go so heavy with our campaigns, and we really shout loud about them, because people do deserve more than hope when they receive this diagnosis, and we need to get that hope. We need to get them more than that. So what I wanted to talk through in my section was the support services. That, and as I say, Ivan's given such a good grounding in this cancer, and I thought I would just really focus in on what support we provide. We've got expert dedicated nurses on a support line. We've got 7 nurses. They've all worked within the National Health Service. They've got over 100 years of experience between them, and they are on our support line that's open Monday to Friday. I'll put the number there, but anytime, if anyone needs it, if anyone you know about needs it, Pancreatic Cancer UK website, it's got all the details about our services. But this support line, this is where I'm talking about that holding hand. You know, when someone gets that really huge shock of a diagnosis, you're faced with such overwhelm. You need to just be able to talk it through with someone and be able to ask all those questions that likely when you were given the news, you just couldn't think through what questions you might want to ask. And our nurses are there on the end of the phone line, Monday to Friday, ready to help you, whether that be about thinking through your treatment options, emotional support, symptom management. That's a huge one. People are often left to deal with a lot of this diagnosis by themselves because there often aren't treatment options for them. But symptom management is something we can help with, and we can make sure you're able to access a much better quality of life with whatever time someone has left. So we can help in so many different ways, and the nurses are absolutely phenomenal at what they do. Just wanted to share this quote because I think it speaks to it a lot from a patient's perspective. But they said, "It was such a relief to be able to talk frankly with someone who was so incredibly well informed at the same time as being so compassionate. It was very liberating to be able to speak candidly. You have been such a comfort." And that is exactly what the support line is aiming to do. It's aiming to be there for your specific situation, treating you like an individual, making sure we listen to everything that's been going on with you, and then be able to offer you whatever support it is that's going to help you and helping you to plan what comes next. So not leaving you to feel as though you're just left and you don't know what's going to happen, but we can help with that. We also provide a huge amount of information And it's written by experts as well as people affected by pancreatic cancer. So we have a couple of hundred people who are signed up to help us write this information. They review it for us. So it gets written by an expert, but it absolutely is then reviewed by people who would be the person that's going to read it. We want this information to help someone to work through, whether it's before diagnosis or it's after, but to work through the information that helps them. But we do not want them to feel overwhelmed by it, because there's already enough of that going on. So the information we provide covers, as I say, right from concerns around signs and symptoms through to end of life care and the support that's available if that's the situation someone is facing. And we aim for it to be as easy to digest as possible, but it is written by experts. It's informative. It is so much better than anyone going and Googling whatever's going on with them. Again, if you tell someone about the Pancreatic Cancer UK website, same with NIPANC, just get them to really expert, accurate information rather than Google. We have also got tailored emails. This is a new service we started about a year ago. Someone tells us a bit about their situation. Are they the one that's had the diagnosis, or are they supporting a loved one? They tell us a little bit about what stage they're at. And we then are able to provide tailored emails that get sent to your inbox every few days over a few weeks. They break down all the information into the most relevant information for that person, so that it's not hitting them all at once. If someone feels that the website, it's too much right now, I can't handle looking at all of the information, the emails are brilliant. They break it all down into manageable chunks, but it's the most relevant to you in the situation you've told us you're in. So it's a brilliant new service that people have found really, really impactful. We also have a real life stories section on our website. This is something that a lot of charities do and has such a powerful impact, where you can just read about other people who are going through something similar to yourself. So if you're supporting a loved one, or if you're the person who's diagnosed, it's all about being able to connect with others who have got the same experience. And we see this in other work we do. However much support you might have around you, so often it can feel really isolating, because they just don't know the same experience that you're having. So therefore, reading other people's experiences, being able to learn from what they've gone through, they're a few steps ahead. Being able to seek out those tips and tricks and hints and things for diet or symptom management, whatever it is, there's these stories that can really help. And we also host webinars, and these are really informative. They're a different way to digest the information. So we'll have either our nurses or have experts who are brought in to talk about certain subjects, such as chemotherapy or emotional support. We have one on end of life care. They're an hour long. They are an opportunity for an expert to speak about the topic in a really easy, informative, but quite informal way. We just want it to feel as though you're having a chat with someone. Once they give their presentation, we then open it up for questions. And again, it's just that opportunity to see around you. There's other people who are in the same situation as you. You can ask your questions and get that advice from experts. So there are current services. The ones I wanted to talk to you about quickly, and I will whiz through these a little bit, but I just wanted to touch on our new project we've been running for the last year. This was all about us seeking the insight from people who are experiencing pancreatic cancer within the last couple of years, whether supporting a loved one or themselves. And it was about us going back to the beginning, back to basics, understanding right now, with the situation and the environment we're in, what are the greatest needs that are not being met, and how can we best support people. So it's been a huge project for the organisation, and what we've come out of it with is we've listened and we've heard these needs, and we've identified 7 needs. The need for community, which is what I touched on, with this sense of I just want to know, I want to learn from other people's experience, I want to talk to people who just get it. A need for hope, a need for urgency, which I think is so relevant at the moment. There's delays and things are not happening quick enough, and that can bring such anxiety to people. Need for clarity, need for control, the sense of I'm being left, I don't know what's happening next. So again, that's where our support line can offer so much help. the need for honesty, and the need for pancreatic cancer expertise. These were what people told us, and off the back of this, we've then been able to reflect on what services we provide. So we've created something called PC Circles. These are groups of around 8 to 10 people in a WhatsApp group, some people who are family, friends and carers, and some people who are living with, some people who can have surgery, others who can have chemotherapy. What we've done is we pulled people into these groups, people who have said, I'd love to chat to someone else who I can share my experience with. And this has been running for about 8 weeks, and it has been incredibly powerful to see the connections that are formed with people who are facing really challenging situations, but they have come together. It's been, as I say, the connections that formed even within the first 48 hours. It was so powerful, people being able to just say, yeah, how rubbish is this situation? How, intense is what we're going through, but we'll do this together. And yeah, I could talk about this all day long because 8 weeks in, the impact's huge. We definitely aim to grow this. We know there's so many people that would want this type of support. And we've done it on WhatsApp because it's a place where you're already usually accessing messages on WhatsApp. It feels quite easy to integrate into your life, but you're able to find that community within that. We've introduced WhatsApp as well for our support line. So I've spoken a bit about the 7 nurses who are doing a fantastic job on the end of the phone. They now are also able to take WhatsApp messages. We heard a lot that phone lines can now feel quite inaccessible. It's quite a barrier sometimes to pick up the phone. It's not for everyone. So we looked at what our options were around this, and we've trialled on a small scale so far, being able to have these conversations, seek that support from the nurses on WhatsApp. And yeah, it's been a really, really good first trial. So we will expand it as over the next 6 months, but a brilliant way, as I say, to lower those barriers to entry for people that don't enjoy the phone, people that might be at work, so therefore can't make that phone call, people who want to pop a message into that chat because at 3 a.m. you can't get that thing out of your mind, so the nurse will reply the next day, but it's out of your head, you've asked the question. And then finally, we've introduced a newly diagnosed call. This is just about to launch. This is a 30 to 45 minute slot that you book. You use a calendar to book it. You can video chat with one of our nurses, and you're given that time, dedicated time for you to just talk through what is going on early on in your diagnosis. We know people often reach us quite late in their diagnosis and they wish they'd found the support sooner. So we want to be more targeted. We want to say, right, you've just been diagnosed, this is for you. You can invite your loved ones along to it as well. So it's a video call for multiple people. If you had someone that lived far away, you could all come onto the call together to just ask all those questions that are racing through your head. That is my part of the presentation done. I hope that's been useful to hear, but I really want to thank you because Ivan and I think we're on a mission to shout as much as we can, especially this month with Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month, about the signs and symptoms and about what support is available. So thank you so much for listening. Ronan, shall I pass back to you?